All right, everybody, welcome to the 402nd edition of the Holy Backboard Podcast. I'm Dustin here in Rip City, and I got my man.
Stage ready to take part in this mock draft, man. It's so cool to be able to record two podcasts in 1 week, add to that number. Anything over 400 is just so crazy. The dedication, doing the right thing damn near every week for since 2014, 15 is insane. So, very excited to do this mock, and
Mock
I am
draft 1.0 of the 2025 draft cycle. These are like some of my favorite episodes to record. I love mock drafts. Anytime a new publication puts one out, I like to read them. I like to go through whether I agree or disagree. It doesn't matter. I have a hankering for a good mock draft. I am a draft junkie,
you're the one
especially
who sends it to me every time.
especially when your team has a good pick. It's fun to
Mhm.
have a good pick, because you're drafting future franchise pillars and cornerstones, and you never know. You might hit the next Clyde, Brandon, or Damian or Bill. You just don't know, and that's the beauty of it. I think the draft is the one avenue teams are guaranteed to add talent. Now you can trade that pick, you can do whatever you want with that pick, right? But it is the one guaranteed avenue that each year, if you keep it, you are allowed to add talent into your pipeline. And for a small market team, there is no better way to build your squad than through the draft. And so Sage, we are going to do one spin of the Tankathon. This will be the only time we do this because the next mock draft, the lottery will have taken place and we will have that order to go through for, I think we'll probably do a mock draft in June as well. We should do them monthly starting in April. So this will be the first time we do a spin. Portland might move down, probably going to stay the same, or in the case they move up, that would be fun as well. But go ahead and give it a spin.
You can see the screen.
I can.
All right, let's click it. We
All
went
right,
down.
The Blazers did indeed move down a bit. We will be picking 11th in this mock draft. The order for those of you
Oh,
listening
Miami.
or not on YouTube, and we will announce them prior to the pick, but just for your eyes and ears. Number one, Utah. Number two, Miami, the big winner in this simulation, jumping up all the way to number two. Number three, Charlotte. Number four, New Orleans. Number five, Washington. Six, Philadelphia. They keep their pick by the skin of their chinny chin chins. Seven, Brooklyn. Eight, Toronto. Nine, San Antonio. 10, Phoenix via Houston. So Houston owns the 10th overall pick. 11 are Portland Trailblazers. 12, the Bulls. 13 Dallas, and 14 is Sacramento via Atlanta. I may be saying that backwards, but Sacramento is conveying that pick to the Atlanta Hawks. That is from the Kevin Huerter trade a few years back. So let's get into it. Sage, do you want to do
Let me do the evens. You can do the odds.
all right? Can you bring that, or you're gonna have to tell me who is because you took away the screen share, so I don't
Utah.
remember the draft order.
You are
Utah.
picking for the Utah
The
Jazz.
first two picks, this is basically where we're back to 2007,
Chalky.
where it's Odin and
It,
Durant.
it,
You
it,
know who's going one, you know who's going two. The Utah Jazz, they say, here's your $100,000 check. Again, NBA, we don't care. We tanked. We got the result that we wanted, and they can finally kick off their rebuild by taking Duke's Cooper Flag. Um, I don't think I don't have much valuation on Utah's previous drafts. We both were high on Taylor Hendricks, but he's been injury riddled in his two
Keontae
seasons
Ford.
in the NBA. Cody Williams looks like an absolute bust. It's early, but he looks really, really rough. And they just have a slew of, I think, role players that they've drafted, whether it's a fire starter off the bench in Keontae George, a pass first point guard in Isaiah Collier, and I think maybe a rotation offensive minded big in Kyle Filipowski, as well as a probably another bucket getter off the bench in Bryce Sensabaugh. So this is Utah's first year of really kicking off their rebuild and after trading away Rudy Gobert and Donovan Mitchell, and it is a really good building block. It wouldn't surprise me if they decided to move off of Lowry Markkanen and really acquire even more capital to make sure they're set up for next year's draft, so they can have Cooper and one of those other blue chippers, because that would be an insane foundation to go off of if you're Utah. And for Utah, I think it is almost Cooper flag or bust, just with how they are as a franchise. Like I said, they've kind of struggled in the rebuild, winning a little bit too much, not picking high enough, and not nailing the draft picks. But for Cooper flag, if he does declare, he has not declared yet, and this is a foregone. It's not a foregone conclusion. The way they lost, he misses the game-winning shot. Maybe he comes back. We don't know. No announcement has been made, but let's assume that he is uh going to make himself eligible for the draft. I think this is the easiest selection to make. He already slides in day one starter, probably going to be primary focus on offense. Um, he's going to give them competitiveness. He is going to give them a higher floor. He is just right off the bat. I think he's going to be ready made to go in and compete on both ends of the floor, make teammates better, and just overall add a better culture to that Utah Jazz franchise. But Sage, if I'm Cooper Flag, I don't want to go to Utah. It has nothing to do with the region or the market. There's just it's really bare bones, and he would go in there having to be almost like LeBron in Cleveland in '03. Like there's just not a lot to work with, especially when you consider their best player plays his exact same role and position in Lauri Markkanen. So that fit for Cooper. I mean, for Utah, it's fine because they need a star, but for Cooper. I would not be super stoked just because I think that would be a difficult rookie year because everything would be placed upon his shoulders.
I get it, but like let's just say they trade Lowry, they do stuff. It can be a very exciting team if they process it all well. Now, right now where it is, yeah, it isn't exciting, but isn't don't they have Dwayne Wade as the lead? Like, isn't the leadership good? The coaches are good. I feel like if they strike while the iron is hot with Lowry, they could be an exciting team. They have a lot of vets that they can trade and potentially get younger, cheaper, better stuff. But as of right now, it is risky. But like until Cooper Flag says, "Nah, I'm going back to Duke." This is kind of how the cookie crumbles for Utah. I do think that they can do some cool stuff. Like I think that they need to desperately bring shooters in. Cooper's not the best shooter in the world. You got Collier, who really needs to extend his shot out, but is a really nice pass first guard. They got big baby Walker Kessler, but they need to get some shooting. And I think when you have a Cooper Flag, there's going to be older vets that can provide shooting that would be willing to come to Utah that would not be coming to Utah if it was somebody else.
I think whoever drafts Cooper Flag needs to bring in a veteran, like a real OG veteran, like whether it's a Udonis Haslem type, a Chris Paul type, that's going to show him the ropes because it's going to be this kid's won everywhere he's went. It's going to be a rough rookie season for him
Yeah.
going to, depending on where he lands, he could go to a better situation, but if he does go to a cellar dweller, it will be rough. So number two, I believe, was the Miami Heat.
The
The
biggest risers moving up 9 spots, the Miami Heat, who are currently 36 and 44, get lucky and move up to number two. And I think that they have a really glaring need at point guard. I mean, they've been searching for that lead guys for a very long time. They thought it was going to be Kyle Lowry. They thought it was going to be, you know,
Terry Rozier.
Terry Rozier's gambling ass. Like it's gonna be a really nice for Miami and Miami Heat fans to have a guy like Dylan Harper. He's easily the number two guy on damn near every board. He's big, he's strong, he has all the skill in the world. He's a good and willing passer, so it's not like yes, the usage rate's going to affect a Bam, it's going to affect a Tyler Hero, but you know what? You got a guy that has some legitimate star factors in Miami with Dylan Harper. I think that like Miami was gonna get a guard in any really I was thinking Fears or I was thinking Yakus, but getting Dylan Harper here is a franchise changer. And I don't know how I feel about this having them be so good anyways, and then them getting Dylan Harper. But I this that's the way that the uh randomness happens in this draft lottery. So I think Dylan Harper would be a fantastic Miami Heat for the culture, for the skill set. I would like to see him be healthy because of that sickness really did it made his statistics look a little bit worse than they should have. But I want to see what Dylan Harper looks like with NBA caliber players around him because that Rutgers team certainly did not have the skill set that he needed to be a successful college team. He and Ace were successful individually, but the team success was pretty ass. So Miami Heat gets a very good one in Dylan Harper here.
Yeah, and if you're Portland, it's almost like a double whammy. A team jumps ahead of you, but also Miami's been rumored to be an Anthony Simons destination as
Yeah,
well.
that cuts that
And
out
if they
completely.
get Dylan Harper, that absolutely cuts that out. That's a nice five for the Heat with you got Wiggins and Hero and Bam and Jovic, and then you've got, Jaime off the bench. They would kick themselves back up into maybe where the Pistons are right now in the Eastern Conference and give yourself a little two timeline action, which can be tricky, but obviously you're not going to not take
Their
that gift.
culture is gonna make a lot of things a lot easier than the Blazers doing the two timeline thing. Real bad, real bad. We've seen it happen many, many times. Miami's culture and like the people around it, I think will make it a lot easier for them to be successful. With the third pick, you have the Charlotte Hornets.
And this is where I think the draft really starts. You see so many mocks where it's like Cooper, Dylan, Ace VJ, VJ Ace. And it's like I don't think it's necessarily cut and dry that VJ and Ace are part of this big four. Like I think it's Cooper one, Dylan two, and then there's just a tier of like 3 to 10. Like it's almost like a dealer's choice. Where do you want to go with this? But um I think and these mocks are always a mix of what we would do, but the tendencies that we've seen these front offices go for. So it's like a 50-50 um, balance. If I was the Hornets at two, I would take Harper and move LaMelo. But with Harper off of the board, I think they'll probably run it back with LaMelo Ball for another year. It's interesting. I think fit wise, VJ makes a little bit more sense to give them some defense at the two. He
They
can play off
desperately
of
need, especially if they have Mark Williams as their starting center. They need defense
he
somewhere.
can, he can play off of LaMelo and off of Brandon Miller. He doesn't need to come in and be a number one or number two option. I think Ace Bailey is a better prospect. Just when you figure that VJ might measure out at 6'3", and that's tough. That's a tough sell for a pure shooting guard to be that small.
But he does have the wingspan to make up for it a bit.
But you are limiting. Like
Yeah.
that archetype is difficult to um buck the trend, I would say. So yeah, I'm looking at the list. It wouldn't surprise me. I think three's maybe a little too rich for Con Knipple, but I love the fit with the Charlotte Hornets. You know what? I am actually just gonna go best player available on my board. I think they should, and I think they would take Ace Bailey. I think you always draft size when you have
Mhm.
similar prospects and tiers. Um, I think they're going to need to address defense in another manner. I just think three's a little too rich for VJ. I think there are lineups that allow Charlotte to play ultra big with
Well,
LaMelo,
LaMelo's 6'6",
Brandon, Ace, Mark Williams, like, and then Tijon Salon, like everyone is like 6'7" or 6'8" or taller. And
Mhm.
that's really where the league is going, is just everyone is just a monster now. You could even, play a little bit of small ball if you wanted with Brandon at the three and Ace at the four. Um, I think while his ceiling may not have been as high as I envisioned coming into the season, it's still, I think, the biggest realistic swing that you can take if you don't land in the top two. And 6'10" shot maker. I still am not certain what Brandon Miller looks like as a creator. I love him feeding off of LaMelo, but him creating his own shot, time will tell, but we are going into year three. Unfortunately, his year two got cut short from the wrist injury. I think Ace has the ability to grow into a shot creator, but right now I think he would thrive
with LaMelo.
with LaMelo. Just really, taking better shots. I think Charles Lee would need to hold him accountable in that shot selection. And he would also come in third in the pecking order, at least to begin with, right? Behind LaMelo, behind Brandon Miller. And I don't know if he would necessarily have the green light that he had in high school or at Rutgers to just kind of freewheel and deal and take all of these tough, difficult attempts at the rim. I think that's where I would go if I was Charlotte. So I have ace three in my board. Um, my board is still fluid and a work in progress, but it would be if VJ were 2 or 3 inches taller, that would be my guy.
Oh yeah,
But
without it.
but I would feel more comfortable if I was a Hornets fan taking Ace Bailey here.
So number 4 is New Orleans. I will say Ace Bailey as a defender was way more accomplished. Like he was actually a good defender in Rutgers. Like you put him at help side, he's not the most athletic, but if he jumps with 2 feet, he can make some plays. I really do think that might be their best defensive player with LaMelo, with Brandon Miller, with I mean, I guess they have Miles Bridges' weird ass still under contract. They got uh Mark Williams, who's like one of the worst post defenders. Like he might be their best starting lineup defender. I know Salon is there, but he hasn't shown me enough yet to warrant major minutes. So Ace Bailey might be one of their better defenders year one, season one. You know what I mean?
He's got the physical tools.
Yeah. It's just about I think he just needs to rep it out. Like it's the lack of burst and the lack of handle is scary, but the shot making is real. I don't think that he's gonna get many paint touches, but I think that his skill set is real. I think Hornets are good because he knows by default he is not the guy. LaMelo's has his own shoe out. Like he's the guy. So he's not expected to be the number one guy. Now, pick 4 is the New Orleans Pelicans, and it's tough because I was really hoping Ace Bailey would fall for them because the Pelicans do have a bunch of 6'3" guards already in CJ McCollum, who I think is probably not going to stay there permanently. They do have DeJounte, but he's recovering from injury. They have Jose Alvarado, who is also
A
5'10".
messy roster, bud.
I know.
The future of Zion is uncertain.
I would build around Trey and Herb, but that's just me.
At this point, you've got to just be taking best player available
Yeah,
because you don't really know.
I wish VJ was taller, but
Yeah.
I think you take him because I don't think
You would take VJ Edgecombe here?
yeah, I would.
Okay.
Because
I think that's a solid
I
pick.
think he's the best dude out of talent wise with ceiling. Nipple would be very good, but and he's taller, but I think VJ is just better right now and has a higher ceiling than Nipple. I think VJ with his athletic tools, like New Orleans was not a good defensive team last year, so you have a full season of Herb, you have a full season of VJ Edgecombe playing defense. You have Yves Mises behind him making up for any mistakes. You're establishing a core and what they are going to do. They're going to play tough defense while hiding Zion Williamson defensively, unless
You
he
have to
can.
play Zion at point, right? You
Well,
got to go
I mean,
point Zion. Like you can't play VJ and DeJounte.
until DeJounte comes back, yes.
Yeah, like I think that if you go Zion at point, VJ, Herb, Trey, and Eve Misi, that's good
That's an offense.
size.
Yeah,
That's
that's an
good
offense.
size. Yeah.
Yeah,
So that I think there are so many unique players in this draft where you have to find the right fit for them. There's a lot of unicorn type prospects that don't fit the traditional mold that need the right co-stars to build around and to hide their deficiencies. Like there are certain teams where VJ would make no sense for, but I think if you do go with a big, long, athletic lineup, he can fit right in. So yeah, I
and
think
then
it's a good pick.
just imagine what they can do
I had to think
defensively.
about it a bit.
Yeah, just think about what they can do defensively. Offensively is probably going to be gross because of the. I mean, Trey Murphy has to be on fuego for them to have proper spacing, but like defensively, and then they can get in transition. And you have VJ, you have Zion, you have Herb, you have Trey in transition. Like I think that they should play hard defense, run in transition, score, and try and be in half court as the least amount as possible. And then, I believe in VJ's shot to be good, but they can find 3-point shooting in free agency. You got a guy with this athletic tools, these athletic markers, that they're establishing something in New Orleans, and it's not flash in the pan old vets. It's a young athletic guy that can be a complete change of pace for that team. And New Orleans, like when they were good, they were a very good defensive team. So having another guy that can do the dirty work and make some things happen is a humongous plus. With the fifth pick in this draft, you have one of the bigger losers dropping 4 spots, the Washington Wizards.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with Derek Queen from Maryland.
Okay, I like it. I was worried
Um,
that you weren't going to. I was worried that you weren't going to take Derek Queen, and he was going to drop to like San Antonio. I think Derek Queen is very good. I think that's a very good pick.
yeah. It's actually not too bad of a fall for Washington. Like, I obviously they would love to have Cooper Flag or Dylan Harper, but I don't know if VJ makes a whole lot of sense for them. And Ace could, but
He's
like,
definitely
I think if Alex Sarr's second half of the season is real, his shot is improved to the point where teams have to respect it like they do Jaren Jackson Jr.'s, for example. He allows for roster fluidity and flexibility up front. So you can pair Derek Queen with Alex Sarr. It allows, so what Queen is, and when we talked about him, is he's a four on one side of the ball, a five on the other side of the
Mhm.
ball. You have to find kind of the yin to his yang. And I
Yeah,
think that is Alex Sarr, and they can be matchup dependent on who Sarr defends. Maybe Sarr plays more on the perimeter defensively. Queen can get, hidden a little bit more. You also need a hub on that Washington Wizards team. Like they just do not have a lot of decision makers.
and
Uh,
Derek is.
they did draft Bub and they did draft, Kaishan George, but I don't know if either of those are long term, like, we trust this player with the ball the majority of the game. They may just end up being, play finishers or scorers. But with Queen, this is one of those draft unicorns where it's boomer bust. Like, I don't really know if there's a middle ground with him. Like, he could literally be the next Jokic, or he could be, tractor trailer Oliver
Travion
Miller,
Williams.
Caleb
Yeah,
Swanigan,
yeah.
rest in peace, that type of
Mhm.
big jumbo center archetype that thrived in college, but just didn't have the foot speed to play in the NBA, couldn't defend, or didn't have the outside shot. So for Queen, he's going to have to work on his outside shot. But I think for him to be successful, his best skill set is his passing and playmaking. So you need to give him the ball and you need to let him set up the others. And I think this is probably his best fit aside. I think it's probably his best fit. I know San Antonio has Wembanyama, but they also have Castle and Paul and De'Aaron Fox. So that takes away a lot of his playmaking
No,
opportunities.
I think Washington's a really good place for him. I
Yeah, and I
just
just,
didn't think that you
if he
fell in
hits,
love.
if he hits, that's awesome. He might
Yeah.
not. Like this is kind of what they have to do after falling in the lottery because they're going to be bad again next year.
Mhm.
So don't settle. Like what the Wizards did and kind of got them to this point was they just settled for drafting role players, whether it was Rui Hachimura or Corey Kispert or Johnny Davis. I know Denny's playing well, but he's no longer on the team, and it took him 5 years to get where he was. Like they kind of settled for these archetypes instead of really trying to swing at least once.
Derek is
And then
definitely
they
going to
started to
change
do it
you.
with Bilal. He looks like he's going to be pretty good. Sar looks like he's going to be pretty good. I think this is just a really nice fit.
I think it is too. Like this is a swing for the fences. This is Washington grabbing the torpedo bat and swinging. And I think if he hits, it's going to be franchise changing. You got a guy that is that big with that good of decision making, with that good of footwork in the post offensively. Now you have a guy that's so athletic, and I would say that Sar might be one of the faster bigs in the NBA. So you have somebody that can cover for Derek Queen's lack of foot speed. I mean Derek Queen is one of the most talented guys in this draft. So for Washington to get him, it's not as big of a drop off, but the floor is rather scary. But I think that it is a great place for him. I have the Philadelphia 76ers.
Where does Philly go? This is a tough one.
I, I mean,
They could go any angle here.
they really could. I think they go Conka Nipple here because they don't need a usage monster. They don't need a guy that needs the ball in their hands because they have Tyrese Maxey, they have Joel Embiid, and they have Paul George, who became washed over a year. But hopefully everybody's healthy, and then you can roll out a lineup of Tyrese Maxey, Conka Nipple, Paul George, question mark power forward, and Joel Embiid. I feel like that could be a really nice team unit. You have Conka Nipple just doing the dirty things, providing spacing, which they need if they're going to have a Joel Embiid starting five. They need the spacing, they need the decision making. You have Tyrese Maxey, you have a Paul George, you have Kelly Oubre, you have guys that can provide defense for Conka Nipple if he is struggling, but you have a guy that can just be a winning player on the court for them. They don't have a guy that's just such a willing passer and such a dead-eye shooter. Those are two things that the Philadelphia 76ers need. So I feel pretty good about at six, Conka Nipple is going to be a Philadelphia 76er.
Yeah, I mean, I would say they could. Like I said, there's a ton of angles they could go. If they're really not sold on Joel Embiid, they could get his, insurance in, Colin Malawach. If they feel like there's just too much talent with, Jeremiah Fears or Jace Richardson or, Casper Giacchionis, they could go that angle. Or they could trade the pick. But
I think trade six probably the most likely outcome,
I think the
but
roster is so expensive that it's
having
hard for them to trade anything right now because their only asset that people would want, because they're not trading Maxi. George has no value, Embiid has limited value, I would assume.
mm,
So you could only trade Jared McCain, but he doesn't make a whole lot of money. So like it's really difficult for the
it is
trade pick. I like Khan. I think it would probably come down between Khan or Trey Johnson. I'm higher on Khan because I do like his passing and playmaking. He developed a really nice rapport with Malawach on the pick and roll, throwing those lobs. So I think he could do a little bit with the ball in his hands. And as we saw this past year, the Sixers let, Jared McCain cook a little bit. He'd be a really nice, third guard off the bench, little six-man action there.
yeah, I think Philly lucked out, and I mean I would much rather this pick go to Philly than the Oklahoma City Thunder. Could you imagine what Conka Nipple would look like in a system like Oklahoma City? But we are not talking about Oklahoma City. We are talking about the BK Nets with the next pick in this mock draft.
I think this is a franchise that I have no idea. Like they just don't have any. It feels like they're kind of just like aimlessly
Chilling.
walking around. They have Cam Johnson, but they just refuse to trade him. They got an absolute haul for Mikal Bridges. Jordy Fernandez unfortunately did too good of a job earlier in the year to kind of really take them out of, number one or number two pick territory. Um, for me, I look at that roster and I think they need some sort of direction. Where do you get direction from? You get direction from your lead guard. I think they need a lead guard here. Um, so then it comes down to Jace Richardson, Jeremiah Fears, or Kasparis
Yep.
Giacchionis. Um, I think they would probably go with Kasparis. He is the tallest of the bunch. I really find value in players that played overseas,
Mhm.
which he did, and came over and is one of the youngest players in the draft. He had an injury to his forearm that kind of derailed a lot of what he was trying to do at Illinois. That's why it was like the beginning he was getting top three, top five buzz after the injury, became a turnover monster, and just, a lot of his warts became a lot more visible. And I think that's why he's sliding down the boards. But I don't know if he's going to be like a franchise point guard, but I think he is the best option for them at this point, I think he's probably the best option, maybe of all of those point guard options,
For sure.
because of his passing and playmaking, because of the size, and I think the fit around him. I think he can develop to be. I think he can grow into becoming much more of a scorer. Whereas I don't know if the other two guards can grow into the passer and playmaker that he already is.
I feel like a lot of his okay. I look at his stats and it's like his assist value is high, but his turnover numbers are extremely high. Like he's a barely above a positive assist to turnover ratio. I would say some of that is I'm trying to make the goddamn play here. I'm trying to make stuff happen. This is college ball, and schematically, it's not always the easiest thing to set people up. And he has Will Riley has to give the ball to. He has that center who's a spacer. I feel like some of those turnovers might have been injury related. I think a lot of it is I'm trying to make the play and the window's very small. But I think he is a very talented playmaker and a very talented guy that would work in a system. He's not going to get that many dunk attempts, but he does get 2 feet into the paint rather easily. I think he can set up both cams, and I think he can make things happen for the Brooklyn Nets. I think that this was the best possible selection for the Brooklyn Nets. So at 8, we have the Toronto Raptors. I think they go Malawatch. I don't know how long Jakob Poeltl is going to be in Toronto. I think it is important to prepare. I think that if you go Malawatch, you have this steady shot blocking. You have his ability to finish. You have guys that can make plays like Emmanuel Quickly, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram ain't gonna pass it, but he can make plays, and Scotty Barnes. So you have guys that can play make, and then Malawat just has a very easy responsibility. He catches lobs, he blocks shots. Obviously, the context around Malawat is the lack of rebounding, and yes, that is a factor. He isn't the rebounder that you would want, but he provides a lot of dirty things that the Toronto Raptors have wanted and needed from a big man for a very long time. So he's going to provide that shot blocking. He's going to get those dunks. And he's only played basketball for a limited amount of time. And he's already such a good mover. I think if you get him in the Toronto scheme, you work with him. You got a guy that can fit a role for many, many, many years to come, and you have center locked down. Maybe you need to get some rebounders at the backups, but you have Mobo to do some of the dirty work too. I think Malawatch is going to be your starting center for a decade. So, yeah, Toronto gets their center. Do you have any? What do you think about Malawatch or Toronto?
Toronto, I think, is one of the more difficult teams to draft because they have just like this collage of
Mid.
similar archetype players. Like they're just loaded at, shooting guard of players who do the same thing. Grady Dick, right? Ochai Agbaji, and now Jacoby Walter last year.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Quickly is their high paid point guard. They trade for Brandon Ingram, but he kind of needs the ball in his hand just as much as Scotty Barnes does.
They are.
Jakob Poeltl is getting older, but he's like the only like I think big
Yeah.
on the team. It's just a really I would not feel at ease if I was a Raptor fan with that roster. So
No.
like I think they could go any direction, honestly. They could get a point guard and be good. I think they could have gone shooting guard and been a little like, but I think Malawatch has such a good ceiling. He's a good mover at his size. They need some rim protection, right? Like
Yep.
if he can develop in that. Again, this is another franchise that needs to take a swing. They did it when they traded for Kawhi Leonard. They knew he wasn't going to resign. He didn't, but they got a championship out of it. And this is a franchise that kind of needs to live in that mantra more often, especially being the only Canadian team. So it's not a small market, but like I think when you think of players, like it's not a free agent destination. That's why they had to re-sign Brandon Ingram once they traded for him. So I think if he hits, he gives you size, gives you an interior presence, just gives you a good lob threat, which they do have a lot of good playmakers. So that makes a lot of sense. They could run a lot of big action on the high low.
Yeah, and again, he's only played basketball for 4 years and is this good. Just imagine what happens. Like I think one of the big flaws about Malawatch is he doesn't put himself in positions to get rebounds. So putting him in an NBA scheme, telling him how to move his body to get rebounds. He just was like he just doesn't know how to move his body to get to the spot to get rebounds. So you have a coaching staff work with him. Like, you know how, like, you've played basketball for a long time. You know how to get yourself angled to the basketball to get a potential rebound. Maloa just has played soccer, so that's why he moves so well. But he doesn't know how to move his body in the basketball scheme. So I think that you've got a guy that provides a pretty comfortable floor, but a really extremely high ceiling. So after the Toronto Raptors, we have won the San Antonio Spurs with the next draft selection at 9. So they have a lot of players, but they have a guy in Wembanyama that can make almost anything work. So where are you going with the San Antonio Spurs?
What do you give the person who has everything for
Everything.
Christmas, right?
Yeah.
Like what honestly, what do you do here? In between two players, trying to think of what I would do if I was the San Antonio Spurs. I am going to go with Trey Johnson out of Texas.
I like it.
I was leaning between him and Colin Murray Boyles, but I then realized they drafted a similar
Yeah,
archetype
that's Jeremy.
in Jeremy Sohan, and he hasn't hit. He's been okay. He has not been that all-world defender that he was
Plus
projected to
playmaker.
be.
Yeah.
And he's very limited offensively. He doesn't shoot. And I think there's this tendency to think that that's okay. We have Wembanyama. He can shoot. Fox can shoot, right? Like, or they can grow into shooters. That's just
Devin
not the
Vassell.
case. Like either you can shoot or you can't. And Murray Boyles is 2 inches shorter than Sohan. I think they're probably similar defensive prospects coming out of college. I think for Wembanyama to be unlocked, they got Fox, who is going to dribble drive and open up the paint, but they need shooting, right?
Mhm.
I think Castle can also be a pseudo jack of all trades type of guard, but they need someone like, okay, if I was the coach of the Spurs, I'm saying, Victor, park your ass in the paint a little bit more. Like, I know, big fella, you like to shoot those threes, but we're gonna like run a little old school 95 Rockets where we're putting you in the block like Akeem. And if they want to send the double, we've got cutters, but we've also got shooters. Like
Yeah,
Trey
Devin
Johnson
Durant. Yeah.
is the SEC Freshman of the Year, 5-star kid. He is just one of the best shooters and scorers in the country, and he did it with good size. He's 6'6", and he doesn't have to be who he's not. And I think with Trey Johnson, if you draft him really high to be this creator off the ball, get his own shot, get to the rim, that's not him. Does he need to work on his rim pressure? Absolutely.
Sure.
But what he is an off-ball threat, catch and shoot, just an absolute flamethrower with the ability to potentially get better.
Mhm.
But I think that's what the Spurs need. They need more just firepower around Wembanyama. You want to get Wemby on as many isolated matchups as possible. Like you
Mhm.
can't keep sticking players out there who can't shoot. No disrespect to Keldon Johnson, but like you need guys who can fill it up. And I think it also maybe allows them to think about moving, Devin Vassell for pieces that you might need.
Mhm.
Because Vassell was drafted in 2020. I think he's on a new contract now, but I think you're starting to, go best player available here. But they definitely just need more shooting. So that's where I would go if I was the Spurs.
Yeah, and Johnson, like, I know that people, if you look at his statistics, he is not a very good passer, but I think that's equal to Texas is not a good team, and Trey Johnson led them to the tournament.
His
Like,
role was to get buckets.
yeah. So I don't think you can take that passing ability because he hesitated every time that the Texas coach got fired for how bad that team was. Trey Johnson was the team, so I don't think that you can take away. Oh well, he's not a good passer. Well, who else is he going to pass it to? Someone who's obviously bricking. So he used his shooting ability. He can get his shot off anywhere. So just think about the easier shots that he can get in San Antonio's scheme with Victor with De'Aaron, and he's just going to have easy corner threes instead of off the dribble, following away. twos, I think that's a really great spot for Trey Johnson. That's a really good spot. So we have the Houston Rockets at 10. Dang. What do you do here? Because I feel like this is a good trade option right here.
I feel like this is a okay, Phoenix. We want Devin Booker. You can have this pick back. That's
Exactly.
what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But we're not including trades in this mock. This is another. What do you give the person who has everything for Christmas?
And it's tough because like you have Reed Shepherd on the bench, you have Tari Eason on the bench, you have
Cam
Cam Whitmore.
Whitmore.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh man, this is tough. This one like this is a very tough one.
I think you could probably just pick your best player and assume that this is either a trade up candidate for
Yeah.
someone or because
I
like
got let me look at all right, so is Fears the best player available in this? Because I'm looking at like mocks and we got like 1 through 9 really really easily. So is it like is it Jace? Is it Jeremiah Fears? Is it Asa Newell? Like where?
Carter Bryant is still available.
But they already
Uh,
have wings that they're like, you know what I mean? They have the guys that
oh
we
no, I'm
mentioned,
thinking
Jason
more if
Tate.
somebody wanted to trade up. Like
Oh
I
yeah,
think with Houston, like I would be floored if they made a selection. So it's kind of hard to like project like what does Houston want or need? Like if Malawach was on the board, that makes
easy,
sense. I
easy.
think they need a backup big, but I don't. I think
They have Steven Adams and Jock Landau.
I think you
Like,
just made the point right there. But yeah,
yeah.
they do.
So I think they make this. I would take Jeremiah Fears.
Yeah, I
I
like
think
it.
that he has. I mean, on Houston, they already have Fred VanVleet, but I don't think he's going to stay there long term. You have Amit, which probably is going to be your point guard in the future, but you have Fears who can be a backup guy and be a higher usage guy. The things that worry me about Jeremiah is the lack of shot, and I don't think he's strong enough to get paint touches. But he has such a high usage rate, did everything for Oklahoma, and they really rode him till they couldn't anymore because he is a smaller guy. He is weaker. He doesn't have a 3-point shot, but my God, when he can use his speed, he can use his dribbling, he makes plays happen. But I truly don't. I think that he'd be the lead point guard on the Phoenix Suns. So, in the grand scheme of things, so
I like
we
Fierce. I
have
think Fierce is solid.
yeah.
The thing to keep in mind when you're looking at these prospects, Derek Queen, for example, is a year older than your traditional freshman. Jeremiah Fears is a year younger. He's going to be 18 on draft night. He was playing at 17, 18 years old in the SEC. He reclassified. Like, so that is at this level, at this age in your development, a year, give or take, is just massive. So when I think of Fears, the 6'4", yes, he didn't shoot well from three, but he shot like 85% from the line. And they always say, look at the free throw percentage in college when you're trying to, calculate how it's going to transfer over to the NBA 3-point line. So I don't have a huge worry that he's going to not be able to shoot the ball. His form looks fine. He's not going to have the type of usage and defensive attention that he did when he was playing at Oklahoma. And that's another thing when you watch these college kids, some like Trey Johnson, he's like the only player that they've got. Defenses are going to key in on these players, and it's very rare you have a freshman that's just able just to elevate in spite of all of that. And even Cooper Flag had a tremendously talented team around him, but I like Fierce here. I think he's definite worthy of a lottery pick, and I think if he puts it all together, he could be a really, really good player.
So with the Portland Trailblazers next pick, who are you thinking?
Yeah, like falling to 11th is one of the more difficult scenarios. Some of the players off the board, you're looking at Con Knipple, Trey Johnson, a Giacchionis even, I think would be a dynamic third guard behind Portland because if you're Portland, you really need obviously talent, but I think you can skew away from centers. I think you've got really strong center depth there, and I don't think there's a player at this position in the draft where they would be picking that would nudge any of your current centers out of the minutes rotation. So what you need, assuming you're trading Anthony Simons, you need a third guard. You need a little bit more of playmaking. You need shooting, right?
Mm-hmm.
You need all of that in just troves. So I wish we had the measurements because
Are you Jason it?
if Jace Richardson is like 6'3" or 6'4", like that's the guy easy. If he's like 6'1" or 6'2", that just becomes such an uphill battle.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Especially with Scoot Henderson, it makes it almost impossible to play with Scoot Henderson having such a small ass backcourt. Um, I don't fully buy into Jaeger Demon as a
No.
shooter.
No, no, no.
I think if you're really infatuated with him, you could trade back and get him. We've discussed this. I don't think Asa Newell has a role on this team, especially with Donovan Clingan looking like the center of the future. Same thing with Colin Murray Boyles. I think putting a non-shooter next to Clingan is a really
And
bad
Scoot.
idea.
Yep.
Liam McNeely is just a little too safe for me. I think he's just a solid role player. I mean, you look at guys like Noah Senge, who played a preseason game against the Blazers. That's just, again, I think you could trade down and get him, and I'm not factoring in trading down. Like he would be an incredible project for this team who would not be ready to contribute. So there's three players I'm thinking of. Jace Richardson from Michigan State, who I think is going to be fantastic. Just he already has an immense feel for the game. Carter Bryant, who you won't know it by the stats because the U of A coach tried to hide him, just like the Gonzaga coach tried to hide Zach Collins,
Yeah.
and didn't want him to declare after his freshman year. But, people watch games. There's the internet. People can tell who's going to be um, a prospect or not at the NBA level. So it wouldn't surprise me if Carter Bryant goes lottery at all. And then there's Neat Clifford, who fits the bill physically, 6'6", 200 pounds as a shooting guard, but he is 23. And I think with the Blazers just needing, they're not to the point where they need that immediate, like, role player can come in and, like, that's going to get us over the hump. We're looking for just solid bench depth. I think they need to take a bit of a swing here. So I would remove Neek from that queue. It's down to Jace and Carter Bryant for me. Because I believe so much in Ryan Rupert, I'm gonna go Jace Richardson.
Mhm.
Right? I think Carter gives you what you want when you're 6'8". He's already athletic. He looks like he could be the steal of the draft, and he probably will rise. Like there's always going to be a riser who comes out of nowhere. We saw it with Salon last year. We saw it with Dion Waiters in the Dame draft.
Mhm.
It's just going to happen. He might be that guy. I think Jace Richardson is probably one of the 5 to 7 best just basketball players in this draft. And he really showed a lot of progress as he was inserted into a Michigan State lineup coached by Tom Izzo, who traditionally relies on veteran players and probably is very hard to play for because he's probably hard on his guys. Like has a level of expectation for his players. So to get on the floor as such a young player, he reminds me a lot of when I scouted CJ McCollum. Just you see a smaller guard, but you see somebody who is able to get to their spots and they're crafty and they've got good footwork and they've got good ball handling and they just have good body control. And you factor in all of that and it starts to offset the size and perceived lack of athleticism because if you can get to your spots, you can get to your spots. Amen Thompson gets to his spots different than Jalen Brunson gets to his spots. And I think seeing that archetype of Jalen Brunson really can sell you on Jace because look how good Jalen Brunson is. Like obviously Jace needs to hit the weight room, but he's a freshman in college. He'll get there. I think he also gives you Scoot Henderson insurance if the Scoot experiment just doesn't work out for whatever reason. Um, Obviously you're falling to 11th. You're running out of options here, so you have to maybe go with something that you might not have done had you moved up to the top four or picked at eight. But like I said, with the bigger guards off the board, I go with the guy that I have a really good feel about just from watching him, hoop at Michigan State.
I mean, a freshman guard dominating offensively in a Tom Izzo coach team. If you're looking for the tape on what Jace Richardson can do in an elevated ceiling level, watch the Michigan State Oregon game, and then you can see what we're talking about. I think one of those special things that Jace can do is run off screens and get to a spot and shoot. So I think that depending size dependent, like how tall is he really? I think that Scoot would feed him on off those screens. I think that the size is a definite factor, but I think that you got a guy that absolutely can be can fit the role that the Blazers are offering if and when Anthony Simons is off the team. So I think you got it. I think that you start him out as the third guard, and then if he shows promise, you give him more minutes, and I think you give yourself a very dynamic goods player. So with the next pick, this one's going to be very difficult. The Chicago Bulls. So I gotta look. I think you're looking at the Bulls. They have guys that I feel like their guards are pretty set. You got Kobe White, you got Giddey, you
They're
got
definitely going to want to
they,
re-sign Josh Giddey. Josh Giddey
but
made himself a lot of money this season.
yeah. If Mallow Walsh was there, I would definitely take him. If Derek Queen was there, I would definitely take him. I think that Carter Bryant
That's who
is
I
gonna.
yeah, I think it's pretty easy pick, but I let you work through that one.
No. I think Carter Bryant's the guy.
They need
You
someone
got
who's not going to, right now at least, to take away shots from
yeah,
Kobe White.
exactly. So I think that I think that Carter Bryant, highest razor guy, wasn't given the minutes, but when you watch him, you see the skill set, you see the defense, you see the scoring, the shooting. I think that um he's gonna put in some good minutes. He's gonna score, and I think Carter Bryant in Chicago is the best possible thing for the team. Um, Obviously, we would love to see more minutes, but Arizona was thinking, and Caleb Love needed all bajillion% of usage for that team. Um, we have you with the Dallas Mavericks.
It's like the team at least wanted to draft
I
for.
know,
Who the hell knows what that franchise is going to do, right? Like they built a
and
team
there's
to
no
win
point guard.
out, and their two guys are just like perennially like injured. Oh man, Derek Lively, and just Max Christie. I'm just trying to go through what they have. Like they Kyrie insurance probably.
But there's no like we took every we the cupboard is bare point guard wise right now.
It is.
It's just
I think I've seen this floated around in other mock drafts, and I think at this point, with whoever's on board, I would subscribe to that notion that they may try to reincarnate a version, mind you, of Luka Doncic, and I
are you
think they'll
going
take they'll take the jumbo point guard out of BYU,
okay.
Jaeger Demon. Just I think they're going to want to go with somebody with an immense ceiling. If they don't trade this pick, I think this is a ceiling. Like we got to get somebody who can handle the ball, pass, get it to our scores, and if he ends up shooting, this could be the steal. This could be the steal of the draft. He's got that type of skill. Like there's a reason he was talked about top five in the preseason when he was putting on a clinic. Then, he started to come up against physicality and the shot went away, and you kind of saw a player who this is what he looks like when he doesn't have the other tools at his disposal.
And just think about the BYU scheme. It's probably one of the best schemes in college. So you got to see what it looks like with actual spacing. Dallas can see, hey, this is what he looks like. I think he's probably the best passer in this draft, and I think defensively he's really really good. It's just he cannot shoot right now. But if you think about it long term, what does Igor Demon look like as if he's an average shooter? I think he's quite good. So you get a guy that has all the passing in the world, the defense. You can play him with Kyrie just because of the Kyrie's ability to create offensively. Yeah, you're worried about the shot, but if he's providing you with everything else that you need, it's good enough. And I think that if he develops something, whether it be a corner shot, whether it be a floater, something that's an in-between game, I think that he is a really impressive guy. And remember, like game one, I was like, damn, Igor looks good. I gotta rewatch Igor Devin. I have to watch him with no biases in my mind. A lot of draft people were thinking, damn, the same exact thing I was thinking. Because you see everything he's giving you, and if he's hitting threes, BYU is incredibly difficult to beat. So I get it. I think that it's a really good trade, a really good pickup. And if they don't trade it, I think Igor Dedman is a really nice play for the Dallas Mavericks because of the playmaking and the defense. Like I told you that I can see a world where he's better than Denny relatively easily, especially if he can shoot a little. Like you're looking at a starter level point guard if the shot is fine. And I don't think that there is a other like Asa Newell needs five things to happen for him to do well. Igor Deadman needs one, and he's going to be a professional player now. He's not going to class. He's going to work on his craft. So I like that pick. With the last pick in the draft, it is the Atlanta Hawks by way of the Sacramento Kings. And this team, I wish Carter Bryant was here for that. But you get to see the March and April version of Zachary Richichet. You get to see Trae Young. They finally gave Onyeka minutes. Muhammad Gay played a lot of minutes. This might just be my bias because I like him, but I'm going with Rasheer Fleming at 14 because what he does is he shoots threes, he dunks, and he plays defense and is very versatile as a defender. You don't have him be your playmaker. You don't have him be anything that he's not. His role is simple. He's going to be a really good defender. He's hitting threes and he's dunking the ball. Trae Young is going to give him so many opportunities to do those things offensively and you know what defensively because Trae Young isn't the greatest defender in the world. So I think that it's simple. What he does is simple, and you can move Jalen Johnson down. You can make it so Rasheer's the sixth man that is the backup five when Onyeka goes to the bench. So you're not just solidifying him at the four spot. You can play him at the five as well. Clint has to be gone eventually, right? So I mean, he hasn't played much in Atlanta anyway. And I'm just thinking of like Muhammad Gay, like is Karis LeVert going to stay there for long term? I don't think so. So you give yourself a 4-5 swing guy that actually can shoot threes. So I'm going Rasheer Fleming, 14 Atlanta Hawks. Who do you think was the guy that um big boards would suggest we got wrong? Like
Murray
would Colin
Boyles.
Murray Boyles be there? Like, I don't think Liam McNeely is as good as Rasheer Fleming in the Atlanta Hawks situation. The French guys, like, was there anybody that like the honorary player that should
I
have been
think it's
drafted?
probably Murray Boyles. I'm just not as high on him. And I think he needs a really specific team to fit
Yeah,
on.
his team comp is a lot harder to deal with than Rasheer Fleming, where you can put Rasheer in and have him play defense and shoot threes. But I mean, Murray Boyles is a first round guy, should
Yeah.
be like top 20, but I just don't think that the teams that were in the lottery really needed a Colin
It's
Murray
just
Boyles.
offensively, there is a lot to, you know,
Maybe Nick Clifford, but I don't know. I the age, I thought he was taller than 6'6". Like, and then we're looking at Tankathon, and they might
just
be a little slower.
historically, older players just drop.
Hmm. No, I'm not. I don't think that we missed anybody that like is glaringly like we didn't forget Trey Johnson, we didn't forget whoever. Like I think this was a good mock draft. So I want to thank everybody for hanging out, listening to the mock. More draft stuff on the way. We'll be talking draft and mocks and players until the actual draft happens. And thank you all for listening. We're out of here. Peace.